pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaws, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent, application for Grafton Stormwater Bylaw, and application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of an apartment complex at 188 Providence Road. And who's here to speak to that?
Good evening, Norman Hill is here. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, I'd like to give you just a brief overview tonight. This is the first time that you have seen this project. This is our first meeting. DEP has issued a file number, and Jay McGill will be the developer. Jay McGill is currently developing the site at the Highfields Golf Course and all the surrounding houses up there on the hill. I believe he might be on here tonight listening, but I'm going to give the overview. So this site, the location of this site, it's a mile or two south of the town hall on 122 Providence Road. As you approach the site, there's a large apartment complex on the right that goes down towards Fisherville Pond. And then you come upon this site, and then there's another large apartment complex after this vacant site. So the topography of the site is such that 122 sits about 20 feet above this site. And then it drops off steeply to this site. And then there's a large flat area that was prepared about 30 years ago for a shopping center. So you're going to find sparse vegetation, young trees and plants on this flat area, but no wetlands on this flat area. And then once you get beyond the flat area, it drops off. You go down the hill almost 200 feet, you come to Fisherville Pond. You can see the pond on the lower left portion of this drawing. Now the project's going to consist of 5 buildings, all rental units. Each building is going to have, they're all going to be identical buildings, 24 units in each. There'll be 22 bedroom units and 4 one-bedroom units, and 25% of these units will be offered up as affordable units, and all of these will be rental properties. Now, there are wetlands to the west, Fisherville Pond, but we're well over 100 feet from there. And there are wetlands to the south. You can see them on the lower right-hand portion of this drawing. That's all BBW. It sort of pours from the north towards the south. There's a swale in there, and the water drains towards the south at that point. We have flagged the wetlands. We have surveyed the property lines and the topography and designed this site. We did sub out the landscape plan to a landscape architect named Alice Webb. And we subbed out the traffic study to Chapel Engineering. We've been walking the site through the planning board for several months now, and we're very close to an approval with the planning board. I'm hoping at the next meeting they will vote to close the public hearing. Graves has done the review for both the planning board and the Conservation Commission. I'd like you to study his report on this project. He didn't come up with any serious issues. He has basically said that our stormwater management design and calculations are accurate, and he's okay with all of the design features and the siltation controls that we have to protect the wetlands. We have done many test holes on this site. There are several large infiltration systems and detention systems. And Jeff Walsh was out there with us last winter and last spring, watching these holes being dug and logging them. So he's quite familiar with this site. That's my quick overview of the site. I'd like to now turn it over to if there's any comments from the board or from the public.
All right, thank you. So Leah, can you go through your report first?
Sure. So this is actually the second time we've seen this, Norm. This wasn't your first go around. So I did have a question about the original plan did have wetland flags A4 through 6 for a little isolated spot, and then that dropped off the plan since, and I was wondering why.
Yeah, we've walked down below there, and the wetlands do not continue further down the hill. It's just a little isolated area.
Okay, so if it's isolated wetland, it's jurisdictional under our bylaw, so we still need to see it on the plan with a
Yes.
25 and 100.
Okay, I don't think we put a 25 and 100 around it. It was pretty far down the hill, but yeah, we'll add that to the plan. Yep.
Okay. And then you do have a phasing plan, I believe in this set further down. We will need to know the amount of disturbance proposed per phase because we do have a limit in our stormwater bylaw. So depending on whether or not you're gonna cross that limit, you might need to request a waiver. Once you know what those figures are. And then the third thing I had was DEP's comment was if street sweeping is required to achieve 80% TSS removal, the applicant should explain how this will occur in perpetuity. A 10% TSS removal credit is only available for street sweeping if monthly street sweeping is performed with a high efficiency vacuum sweeper. And then they give the citation for the stormwater handbook where it references that. So that's just something we would want to hear the applicant's feedback on. Other than that, as you mentioned, Graves did their review. The only outstanding comment was really just about the location of the fencing around a detention basin, which we don't exactly care about. And then that's all I really have in terms of questions or outstanding items. So I'll give it back to the commission.
So Leah, if I could comment on what I know about the phasing, what Jay McGill has told me is that he's only going to put these up one at a time. And as he has nearly completed the first building, he would then break ground on the second building. And he would just, this project is not going to be built over 6 months. I picture this maybe taking 3 years to build these 5 buildings. It may take 5 years, but that's what he's told me. He's going to put up that the building at the furthest north. It looks like building number 2. I think he's going to do that one first, and then he would do the one next to it, and he would build the road from the entrance down and around those first 2 buildings. That would I think that's going to be the initial construction phase. But
Okay,
he's going to just continue going. He won't be stopping over a period of 4 or 5 years. He probably won't ever stop.
okay, that's fine. I would just say if you can revise your phasing plan sheet to reference that idea, because I think right now it looks like just 2 phases.
So
And we will need the calculation of the amount of disturbance.
So can we
Got it.
just flip to that one page really quickly? And again, it's 5 acres. Um, so it's just like when I look at it, wherever your phasing plan is.
I think it's a ways down, Jan, and I think it's the one that's got a big red line around everything. This one, these 2.
Okay. All right.
So it kind of splits in the middle here. The arrows to the lower left show north is
Phase 2.
phase 1, south
Yeah.
is phase 2.
Yeah. So yeah, I would just look at this and calculate if it's over 5 acres, then you need to make a case on why you're going to do such a large phase. This is based on past issues with having projects being developed with very large areas of open soils and having issues because they're not controlling everything. Um,
Right.
so I mean, this is fairly straightforward, but it's just something that needs to be at least pinned down at this time. Obviously, if things change when they're actually building, then you can always come back to us, for amendments and so forth. We just want to make sure that, you know, if the intention is only to build one building at a time, that makes sense. Don't have a problem with it. And if you go up one sheet, I think that will show you so you have all of that. I'm guessing stormwater that has to be put in first. I don't know if they're
Yes.
going to put in the clubhouse first. so you have a certain area. We can do it as many phases as you want. Our concern is just having too much, um, you know, earth exposed at one time because we've
Right,
found it to lead to problems. So,
yeah.
okay, so that's one thing. Um,
A couple of things that I forgot to mention. One is that the site is gonna be connected to town sewer. If you look at the upper left-hand corner, you see that narrow strip? There's an
yep.
existing sewer pipe that runs right along that edge of the property. And so everything's gonna gravity feed to that existing sewer line. And then also, we're gonna loop the water. We're gonna go off 122, go down through this site and then back out to 122. If you look at the lower right-hand corner, you can see a little narrow strip leaving there. That's that water loop going back up towards 122. So you can see the loop, because it'll loop right down and through the site and then back out again. So town water and town sewer.
Yep. No, we realize that. And again, as far as the phasing plans, we don't really have a comment on what needs to be done, what doesn't need to be done. That's up to you and the developer. It's more just if a phase one is 4.5 acres, well, you can't start on phase two um, until it's all stabilized.
Okay.
So it's just
Okay.
making having a drawing just like this that's clearly shows into what Leah was talking about, just areas of what you're showing here as the two phases. If they're under five, then they fit within our regulations. If they're over five, then it would be okay. You would need to get a waiver from it, and typically, what we've done is you have to explain why you have to do over five,
All right,
and then
we'll get
yep,
those areas to you. Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, anything else, Leah? I think
I'm all
that
set with my
okay.
comments.
Let me quickly go around to the other commissioners because I have some, potential suggestions for, thinking about conditions. But obviously, we need to have a few things updated first. But Jonathan, any other questions or
No, I don't have.
suggestions of conditions?
I don't have any other questions right now. Thanks.
Okay, Travis.
Nope, nothing for me right now.
Okay. So, Leah, when we get to the point of doing conditions and to the point of DEP comment about the type of um, vacuum sweeper and so forth. So there's a few different ways we can handle this. Um, it is truly has to be done on a monthly basis. We need not only evidence that you know the high efficiency vacuum sweeper will be used, but we would need to know like who's going to do it and some sort of mechanism to make sure it's being done on a regular basis, so we're not chasing after.
Okay.
Maybe it's an annual maintenance contract or something. I don't care. That's up to the applicant how they want to present it, but we need some evidence that it's actually going to be done, because if it's not done, the project is not in compliance with the wetlands protection plan, and then we would have to have all sorts of things happen after that. So,
All right. We'll get you that.
okay.
Sandy, just one quick question. Is that only during construction or is that after?
No, that's afterwards. That's O&M. That's after post construction.
Okay.
So you can do a couple of different ways. You can do actually, not take any credit for street sweeping if you're not going to do it. You can do 5%, and I think that's twice a month. I can't remember. I'd have to, or it's 4 times a year, I think. I'd have to check the regulations. But when you go up to 10%, then it has to be an active. Obviously, what you're doing is removing all the sediments and potentially what could be total suspended solids from the site. So by getting that maintenance done, you get a credit for it. On our part, the difficulty is just this is not something where it's clean out a storm scepter, you know,
Mhm.
once a year or every 2 years, depending upon the volume it's collecting. It's something that has to be done every month. It puts a big responsibility. How do we follow up on it? What I'm saying is just to be proactive. So something there that demonstrates there is a contract or whatever, annual maintenance agreement or something that shows it's being done once a month and it's being done by that specific type of vacuum sweeper. So,
Got it. Thank you.
yep. All right. So I will. So I'll go out to the public now. If anyone is online that wishes to ask a question or give a comment on this particular project, please feel free to raise your hand by using the feature. And we'll keep an eye out to see if anyone does. So, Norm, what's your pleasure as far as moving forward?
Well, I think I'd like to give the board some time to read Graves' report, study all this. So I'd like to ask for a continuance, like a 2-week continuance,
Okay.
or maybe a 3-week continuance. I think we meet with the planning board on December 11th, I believe. So I'd like to have the planning board approved before I come back to you, because I don't want to have a moving target. I'd like to have this thing approved, and then you can look at the finished product, you know?
Okay.
So I'd pick a date after December 11th.
So, Leah, what's the upcoming meetings?
So you could do the 12th, which is
Sure.
just the next day, or you can do
Yeah.
January 9 is the one after that.
No, let's go for the 12th. Maybe we can celebrate Christmas.
Yeah. And if for some reason it doesn't work because of whatever, you can always
Yeah.
request another continuance.
Yeah.
So Leah or Jan, anything from any of the public?
Nothing from the public.
All right, thank you very much. Based on the request for continuance, do I have a motion?
Sure, I'll move to continue the hearing for 188 Providence Road to December 12th.
Do I have a
Second.
I have a motion, a second, roll call vote. Travis?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion passes, and we'll be seeing you on December 12th.
Thank you. Everyone stay well. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. All right, Leah, moving on here. Going down your list is next one's 124 Westboro Road. Okay. All right. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent, application for Grafton Stormwater Bylaw permit, and application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of warehouses at 124 Westboro Road. And who's here to speak on that?
I have Josh Swirling with Bowler. Good to see you,
All right.
Sandy. and
How you
Commissioner.
doing?
Good, good. We have Haley with GFI as well, and if we need him, Scott Jordan. And Hannah's also here with GFI, but I think I can probably help us maybe get to the finish line tonight. We'll see.
Okay. So we'll start off with Leah going through her report.
So we actually talked through special conditions last time. So we would just be looking to button those up. We also granted their 2 waiver requests last time. Those were for work in the no disturb for some trimming of trees and subsequent plantings to achieve the sight line they need. And the second one was for greater than 5 acres being exposed per phase due to their extreme slopes on site and the proposed grading. So I have one finding and I have a bunch of conditions. I can walk everybody through unless anyone has any questions prior.
That's a good idea. Let me quickly go around to the commissioners to see if anyone else has any questions. This was all sent out to us in the agent's report. So, Jonathan, any questions before we start looking through conditions?
Nope.
Okay, Travis, any questions before we start looking at special conditions?
Nope. Nope.
All right, go ahead, Leah. You got the floor.
Okay, so for a finding, I have that the commission is not deciding whether resource areas are BVW or IVW in this order, nor is the commission determining whether IVW could be ILSF in this order. So that's just to clarify what resource areas we're in agreement with. Then for special conditions, I have prior to commencement of work, a final revised plan set shall be submitted to the commission incorporating the previously provided phasing plan, which was dated September 18, 2023. Prior to commencement of work, the applicant shall provide a copy of the SWIP to the commission. Erosion control shall be inspected prior to and following any storm events greater than 1 inch, and this language shall be incorporated into the NIPD's SWIP inspection language. Copies of the NIPD's inspection reports shall be provided to the commission throughout construction, and this language too shall be incorporated into the SWIP inspection language. Prior to commencement of work, the applicant shall obtain a bond for erosion control, site stabilization, and stormwater management. This may be done in conjunction with any bond requirements of the planning board so that we don't double up on efforts. No disturb signs shall be installed adjacent to wetland flags AA 59 through AA 57, AA 35 through AA 34, AC 9 through AC 11, and AD 16 to AD 17. That signage may be affixed to the proposed chain link fence. No disturb barrier adjacent, a no disturb barrier shall be installed adjacent to wetland flags AC 9 through 11. They do have this shown on this latest revised plan set. The rest of the spots that we called out in the prior condition already have a chain link fence and guardrail, so I did not call out an additional barrier there. Basins shall not be fully excavated until their temporary use for stormwater collection during construction is over. The applicant shall follow the stormwater O&M plan, no pushing snow into the basins, and cleaning up sand and any litter after storm events. All work shall be phased according to the approved plan. Previously disturbed areas must be stabilized with either permanent or temporary measures prior to the disturbance of additional areas. Any slopes steeper than 2 to 1 shall be stabilized with erosion control matting. Any slopes greater than 3 to 1 will be stabilized with tackifier and seeding. And the final one I have, any future disturbance proposed on site, which goes beyond that permitted in the approved plans here, shall be submitted to the commission for review and approval.
So as far as the applicant goes, do you have any comments or questions on these proposed conditions?
Just a couple of questions. Everything seems reasonable. Just hoping to get clarification on this first special condition in terms of what is being requested. We would so I'll ask that question. What is being sought by way of an updated plan set that incorporates the phasing plan?
Sure. So the set we're looking at tonight, which I believe is the November 20, I think was the date on
Yeah.
the latest one, would be the set that the commission would be approving, but that phasing sheet is not in there. So we just
Oh,
want that
so you
added.
simply want that added to the cover
Correct.
sheet and incorporated into the set. That's not a
Correct.
problem.
And one other question, are you fully through the planning board and have sign off from them?
We are down to ironing out conditions of approval and don't anticipate any plan changes.
All right, that would be the only other reason that we would want updated plans is if something changes, or if or if there's a design change. Obviously, that doesn't apply to minor field changes during construction, but we're really looking for what that latest CD construction documents that you're going to issue for construction.
Yeah, we're pretty close. I mean, there's we ironed everything out. We got peer review signing off on everything, including the final driveway configuration, including some mitigation that includes the crosswalk that's shown on the 1120 set. So the plan should be pretty tight.
Yeah, and you should know that I actually go by this site almost every day, just like just like what's going on across the street. I've been watching what's going on. So you get another set of eyes every day of me passing this site. So
We'll take it, Sandy.
I don't know if it'll change anything, but any other questions?
Just on the no disturb signs. Do we want to, I think we had talked about frequency of those at one of the prior hearings. Is your standard 25 feet, if I recall correctly? I think we had talked about going to like, I had asked if we could go to 50, given the size and scale of the site and the lack of need, in my opinion, to have them very frequent. It's not like a residential house
So-
or even dwelling where you have people meandering about the areas where these are located. I think we're trying to aim towards people plowing and things like that, right? And maintenance folks.
Yeah, the old
Ye-
dumping of the leaves and grass into the wetlands stuff.
Yeah, so I
So-
do think last time when we were talking about frequency for the signage is when we were looking at covering
All of them.
a wider border, if you will. The flags I've called out now though are really just spans of like 2 and 3 sets of flags. So it's really
Pretty isolated.
it's all the spots where the 25 is pretty close to touching. So right up at the entrance there, it's like 3 flags worth. Then and that's the entrance off of Route 30. Then if you keep following the driveway, it's like 2 flags worth adjacent to building B, like out front where that touches. And then the AC series is down where you put that fence. And the AD is, I believe, that
To the right.
southeast corner of that parking lot.
Yeah, the bottom right of building A, right?
Correct. So
Yeah.
it's not really large swaths of signage anymore unless the commission feels they had a different takeaway from the last meeting.
So I happened to watch that riveting discussion on video, so to meet the Mullins rule. Yeah, I mean, I think the general, sense is that just based on experience, we're looking just to on a non-residential is to look at potential areas where some maintenance people or landscape folks would dump something over a retaining wall, a fence, or something, and so we're just based on listening to that last hearing and what Leah just said, we're just really looking to where that 25-foot no disturb is close to the limit of work, and so that because it abuts right to in this case either a parking lot or a roadway or something. So it's a lot less than what was started off during the conversation. So
Is the standard 25? I don't recall.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, not a huge deal. And I don't believe the planning board had any conditions about bonds for erosion sediment control. I'd have to go back and look. But how do you typically handle those in terms of coming up with an estimate and then what the bond value is?
So generally we don't want to as Leah said, we don't want to double dip or anything, but we want to cover things. And for us, it's to protect the wetlands, and also under our stormwater is, as far as erosion control, we're just looking to what would be the cost of stabilizing and maintaining erosion control if something happens and it's either for whatever reason it's the job is suspended or it goes away or something, and there's already exposure of soils and so forth. So it's really if the planning board already covers like stormwater facilities and things like that, we don't need to. It's about stabilization. Leah, anything else to add to that?
Yes, but I also just want to back up for 1 second. The frequency of our signage is 20 feet, not 25.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Okay.
thought it was 25. I'm thinking of the 25-foot no disturb. Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But back to this, so we we ask the applicant, and this will be spelled out more in the condition. I just didn't include.
That's fine. We don't
Every
need to get into,
sentence.
that's fine.
Um,
We don't need to get into the weeds of it then. If it's gonna be a little more prescriptive, that's great.
Yeah, we just asked the applicant to calculate that worst case scenario if, you know, the whole thing was bare and then the project stopped.
Yeah.
What it would take to stabilize the site. So we ask for an estimate on what you think that would cost. Then we send that to our peer reviewer to double check that math and make sure that that's accurate. And then once we agree on a value, then you would go ahead and obtain that bond and we hand that over to the treasurer collector for them to hold on to.
Yeah. And
That sounds good.
yeah, and it's not to restore the site, it's to stabilize the site. So it's a very big difference if you've done some of your large cuts and fills, and it's really just to, you know, grade it out and stabilize it so we don't have issues. That's all.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other
That's all.
Any other question? Okay. Having gone through that, I will open up for any comments from any attendees from the public. If you have comments or questions, please feel free to raise your hand using the icon. And we'll kind of talk as Jan continues to monitor attendees. All right, Leah. So we're getting pretty close. Is there anything else that we should chat before we have a vote?
Nope, that's all I have.
Okay, sounds good. I'll go around to the commissioners one last time and then we'll go to a motion. Jonathan, anything left to ask or add?
Nope.
And Travis?
Nope.
Okay, I'm all set also. So if we could have a motion to kind of issue the order of conditions with the finding and special conditions as reviewed.
I'll move to close the hearing and issue the order of conditions, finding as described by the agent and special conditions as discussed.
That's great. A second?
That was it.
Second.
And we'll do a roll call vote. Travis?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
I am also a yes, the motion carries. Good luck and I'll be watching.
Yes, understood. Thank you very much.
All
Have a good
right, have a
night.
good one.
Bye.
All right. Keep on rocking and rolling, Leah.
Yep.
Okay, so go back to this one. We'll go to the next one, which is 85 Fitzpatrick Road. So I will read that in. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of 2 wetland crossings to a single family house at 85 Fitzpatrick Road.
Good evening. I'm Bob Murphy, here representing Jim Ebeling, 85 Fitzpatrick Road. We have previously had a hearing on this site, and based upon the review from the commission and the peer review from Ecotech, we decided to reroute the driveway in a position where, if I could just reiterate, the original site plan was a little bit lower than this on the road, but there were 2 wetland crossings, and as a result of that, there was a need for a restoration replication plan, and based upon Arthur Allen's review of the entire site, it's a 17 acre site. There was another alternate route to gain access to the upland area without the need to fill any wetlands or cross any streams. So the plan that you have before you now shows the existing house at number 87, which is a relative, the grandfather, and he has allowed his granddaughter to create an easement on his property, 35-foot wide access easement, so that we can develop a common driveway which will serve both houses. We will have to reconstruct the first, say, 200 feet of the driveway to meet the requirements for a common driveway, which is essentially 18 feet wide until you get to the house, the first house. And then we drop down to a 12-foot wide driveway up to the house. The main issue here was drainage. The site is on the eastern side face of a fairly substantial glacial drumlin, and the soil along the top is moderately well drained and very well drained, and Hinkley sand at the base of the slope, and the lower right portion of the site, because of the Hinkley sand, is in an aquifer, so it's in the actual aquifer zone for the town. So we're not doing any work in that area either. But what we found, based upon just reviewing the drainage this summer, I was out there a couple of times and we had some really heavy rainfall. One time we was surveying, and another time I just went out to see it. And there's a fair amount of drainage that comes down to the site. It splits just above where the proposed house is. And it goes to the upper portion to the north, where it feeds into a wetland there. And that ends up going down into a catch basin which crosses the street. And then to the south, the second wetland is the result of the split going in the southerly direction. And that ends up going under the Fitzpatrick Road as well to the east. So all of the drainage from the site ends up going through culverts beneath Fitzpatrick Road and emerging on the other side. One interesting point here is down on the lower right, there's you can just see the culvert that's showing up a fairly dark, heavy line, but there's a basin there. When they originally built Fitzpatrick Road, the road was adjacent to the stone wall, and they built a swale along the stone wall to manage the drainage, basically to keep it off the road. Fitzpatrick Road was rebuilt and moved further to the east, and where it is now. As a result of building the road the way they did, they filled in a fairly substantial hollow area, a large swale, and created a fairly substantial pond, well, for lack of a better word. It's a detention basin now because the pipe is partially filled. So that area acts as stormwater management for the entire site. And it holds the water for quite some time and lets it out slowly. So we don't really have we have a natural situation here that's controlling the stormwater from the site. However, we realized that where the driveway goes pretty much straight down the slope. So we are going to have a crown on the upper part of the driveway and essentially drain the drainage off to the slopes, off to the sides of the driveway to the north and the south. And we have a system of drainage swales with stone check dams, essentially just to control the flow from the driveway and in that general area, and control it so it has several outlets, which is very similar to where the water's going now. There's to the left, the more northwestern outlet goes into the wetlands in an area where there's a dug ditch. You can see the arrows, the stone wall. There's a ditch that was dug there. And where it says 25-foot buffer zone next to lot 2, 17 acres. There's an old road, there's an old path in there. There's a cart path in there. And that's why you see the edge of the wetland follows, let's see, flags 112, 111, 110. They're in a straight line. They're following that old cart road. So there's a drainage ditch there. So that area will drain into it. To the south of the driveway, we have a couple of outlets essentially following similar patterns of drainage that we found out there. And with the check dams, we feel that with check dams and riprap, swale and everything, we can control that drainage where it flows down into the wetland area. And as it gets down to the bottom, the base of the wetlands, it's very, very flat. There's the topography doesn't really show it, but there's a lot of depression storage in that area where at one time someone that did excavation in there or took out large boulders or something, because there's quite a few depressions in that area. So you don't really get any heavy runoff from that area. It does detain the drainage. Let's see, the septic system and the house are outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. The septic system meets Title V, being pretty much outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. The house, we situated it in an area that we saw kind of a high spot there with the drainage. As I say, it was splitting. So the house has been located essentially through field conditions in a spot where we feel we won't have any drainage problems. The gravity feed system, the previous system was a pump. It's Title V. This is a gravity feed system. And I'd say we added erosion controls on both sides of the driveway, just to handle the drainage, both coming off from the existing house and the yard behind the existing house. Try to control that drainage before it gets into the construction site. And then also where the temporary driveway is constructed, well, we felt we should put erosion controls along the entire perimeter of the area to be disturbed. And pretty much the erosion controls are the limit of disturbance. I put a second row of hay bales below the septic system, just as an added precaution, because that is a fairly substantial slope that will be seeded. Essentially have grass growing over the septic system, but it's not really a construction area. It's just a row of wattles and silt fence as a second precautionary measure. But that's pretty much it. With that, I'll give it back to the chair and answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thanks. Has this plan changed since the last time we looked at it?
Substantially.
Okay.
The driveway is no longer, the previous plan had 2 wetland crossings and a replication plan for a replication of the filled area. That's all been taken out. So the driveway you're looking at now is about 250 feet north.
Okay.
It's about, yeah, roughly 250 feet north of the original driveway. So what we also did was we put the house further away from the wetlands as well. So the house pretty much is bisected by the the 100-foot buffer zone.
Okay.
And so the majority of the grading and everything around the house is well outside the 50-foot buffer
Okay.
zone. But the idea, we took a look at 2 scenarios to get the driveway in.
We don't need to go through the scenarios. We need to look at what's in front of us. So
Okay, well, basically what I'm explaining is there's a need to request a waiver to work within the 25-foot no disturb area. It's not for the driveway, but it's mainly for the trenches, the trench work, the grading, landscaping. That work is to be done within, for erosion control, stormwater management. We need to do some work in the 25-foot buffer zone. And the reason I was mentioning the previous idea was that it required a lot more work to get the driveway up into the upland area. So this is the driveway location land that requires the least amount of impact on the site in order to gain access to the upland.
all right, thank you. Leah, do you want to go through your report?
Sure. So for that waiver request, we will need the associated fee. If we get to the point of looking to close, that is something we could condition prior to commencement of work. I did have a note about limit of disturbance being revised, but that's been addressed, so you can ignore that one. As well as ignoring the second special condition, which was going to be also alluding to that change for limit of disturbance. I did email DEP after this revision came through to see if they had any different comments. They had a lot previously when it was the design with the 2 crossings, so a lot of those are not relevant now. So I did ask if they were going to issue new comments. I have not heard back from them. Technically, we just need the number to close, not necessarily comments from them, so that's up to the commission.
Okay.
So then we just have the waiver to vote on, and then I have a finding and a couple potential conditions we can talk
Okay.
through after other people ask questions.
Sure. Let me go through the commissioners first. Jonathan, any new questions on this plan?
Nope, no new questions.
Okay. And Travis, any questions on your part?
The trenches are gonna be permanent, correct? The 1, 2, 3 or so trenches
The
that are on
swales,
the
yeah.
plan along the, and are those gonna be seeded with anything? I think you explained it, but I missed it.
We can, yeah, we generally put crushed stone in the trench, and then we have the check dams. However, you can put like an annual ryegrass in there, or even a forestry mix of grass. The grass would, actually slow down the water a little bit. But the idea is to pretty much have it as a, well, we'd keep the trench natural, but we'll have some stone, but we could seed it as well.
Yeah, it just looks like it's really close to the 25. Well, it's in the 25 in a couple spots. And they all just appear to be going right into the wetlands. So I was just curious if they're just gonna be like a riprap lined chute going right to the wetlands, or if there's anything we can do.
What's the slope of those? The slope of the swales?
They're about 5-6%.
So I would suggest to size some stone for that slope based on the what's being flow through it, and then I would also suggest that they're seeded so that you can have vegetation because it will help to slow and clean the runoff. And I think that can be done with a condition. I don't think we need to have plans revised. I mean, it's very close to what you're doing. Crushed stone is probably too small. Riprap is too big. You probably need something a little bit in between, 3 to 4 inch stone, just so that you don't have the stones migrating down slope. And then once you've got a good established, you know, vegetative, whether it's grass or, you know, other type of, you know, grasses, sedges, other ground cover type of stuff, nature will take over it and help to control everything.
So can I just cut in for a second?
Yep.
If we can scroll right, I think there's a detail for the trench, so
Okay.
you
Oh,
can
okay.
see what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, okay. So this is a little bit different. So a 10-pound riprap is actually, they call it a 4 inch pea stone. So that's right in the area that I was talking about. So that makes sense. So you have gravel underneath, and then you have a little bit larger stone, and it's the appropriate way of doing it by weight. So that prevents it from rolling down the slope. Um, and then they have the note on there about all swales greater than 10%. I'd have stone check dams installed every 50 feet. All swales greater than 7%. I'd have stone checked every 50 feet. Okay. Yeah, that answers my question, and that actually takes away from doing that. Any of the recommendations I had for conditions, the only difference would be I would to seed this to see if you get some growth in there. It doesn't have to be, having it at that slope is a little bit tougher to get it established. So starting with the stone and letting nature take its course would be good. Thank you, Leah.
Yep.
Anything else, Travis?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. I really, I obviously, moving the driveway, getting it out of the wetlands and having to go through two crossings actually helps a lot of things, especially, potential hydrology issues with having to have culverted sized and all that kind of stuff, where now it's outside of the wetlands. I think that's a very positive approach. Um, Anything else, Leah? Otherwise, I will open it up to the public
Could
to
I
see
make,
if any.
could I jump in after Leah speaks?
Sure. So I was just going to open it up to the public. So if you're online, if you have any questions or comments on this revised plan, please raise your hand. We'll be happy to answer anything, um, or have the applicant answer it. All right. Jan can monitor that. Anything else, Leah?
I don't have anything till we're ready to talk about conditions.
Okay. All right. Bob, do you have what else you want to say?
Well, I understand that the original application fee is non-refundable. I just wanted to kind of throw some numbers at you. The two crossings were $500 a piece, with a total of $1,000 that the client has paid the fees. It got split between the town and the state. And then there was a wetland bylaw fee for the crossing filling. So I guess we understand that fee may not be refundable, but I was hoping that possibly the board could see fit to apply that $1,200 towards the $50 waiver fee, considering that it's a fairly substantial amount of money, and we wouldn't have to, hold off providing you with an additional fee.
So let me ask that in a different way. So Leah, did we get, because it was two crossings and that was previously there was work within the 25-foot buffer. Did we get the fee for the work within the no disturb at that point?
No, we've been asking for it since the beginning.
Okay. So I'll open it up to the commission. I mean, if you had paid for the 25-foot no disturb previously, I would agree with the assertion that why don't we just apply it to this one because it's reduced, but we never did receive the fee for the work within the 25-foot disturbance. So I'll ask the commissioners, Jonathan, any kind of comment on this particular question specifically about the $25 for the no disturbed area?
So have we ever done this in the past where they pay one fee and they get is it a buy one get one fee? Like I don't understand why it should be exempt on this instance
Yeah.
with our situation here.
Yeah, for me, if they had previously paid for the $25 for the no disturb for the first plan, but they've never paid it, so we're still looking for that fee. In fact, it's one, is it a single? Leo, previously, was it because it was two crossing, was it 2 fees, or is it just a single fee?
No, either way, it's one waiver request to work in the no disturb zone.
Gotcha.
Whether it was then or now.
Yeah, so that hasn't changed at all. So, Travis, any kind of comment on that?
Just that my understanding is the fees help cover staff time.
Yep.
And I don't know how much time was actually spent to get to this point, but something to consider.
Yeah, and the fact that the plans were revised, and that's fine. It's pretty positive revision,
Mhm.
but again, it's still it's just the $25 that we have as a standard to do the additional review.
Is it
and to
25 or 50?
It's 50 for a
Oh, it's
waiver
50? I'm
request.
sorry. That's
Yeah.
I keep going to 25 because it's 25-foot no disturbance. My apologies. So it's a $50 fee, and that's there for a couple of reasons. But again, it was never previously paid for. So and as far as what is required under the state is under the state. So yeah, so I think general consensus is that the $50 fee for the 25 work within the 25-foot is still applicable, and it has not been paid yet. So we would be looking to get that, and that would be we can condition that. So
Yeah, I could bring it tomorrow.
yeah, and then anything else, Leah, other than talking about conditions? Has anyone from the public requested to speak?
Nothing from the public.
Okay, great, thank you. So why don't we go through potential conditions, Leah?
Okay, so I have one finding, which is that and this is per Art's recommendation, the commission is in agreement with the resource areas delineated on the plans. However, additional resource areas exist on the site greater than 100 feet from the proposed work, which have not been delineated on the plans. And then
Okay.
for special conditions, I have, as we discussed, prior to commencement of work, the applicant shall submit the waiver request fee. I have one from our conversation tonight, which is that the trench detail shall be followed plus additional seating for the trench.
Yep.
And both DEP, when DEP looked at the previous plan to say this, but Art still echoed it in his review of the new plan, which was permanent demarcation to be installed for the work limits wherever they fall within 50 feet of resource areas. So we can look at that in light of we would be requiring a no disturb boundary for the 25. We could look at making it a little bit greater into the 50, which would basically be both sides of the driveway. And if you feel the need by the septic system, but I would maybe just say driveway for
Yep.
a boundary. And then for no disturb signage, I called out flags, which is let's see, I think I'm starting at the road. So 1-1, 112 through 115, 1 through 5, 38-7 through 41, and 31. I think 31 is the last one out by the septic system.
Okay. So is there a way to combine those two things?
The signs in the boundary.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the limit of work boundary in the signs.
I mean, we usually do two separate conditions, one condition laying out where we want signage. Another one laying out where we want a boundary, and then the boundary one says you can affix the signage to the boundary.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Okay. So you're looking for just um, the barrier boundary or whatever you want to call it at is that what you're talking about as far as your first um, work limit of work?
So we usually do something along the 25.
Yep.
Because of the extent of disturbance, DEP and ART recommended looking at the 50-foot.
Okay.
Which we don't have a 50-foot called out in our bylaw, but just they're saying anytime the limit of work encroaches within 50 feet, they suggested permanent demarcation of that limit of work line.
Okay.
We could back it up to the 25 as we usually do, and then we could have a condition that any future disturbance comes to us for review. We could handle it that way.
Yep. Check with commissioners. Jonathan, any kind of comments on this?
I don't know if that's, I don't really have a comment. I don't know if that's more on the applicant of what they would want to do, if they would want it to be at the line, and I don't know, that might be more of a question for the applicant than, I don't care either way. I don't think it matters either way. I think it's still there, but it's more the
Right.
preference of the end user.
Right. And yeah, so when we're talking about this, Leah, just so that everyone's on the same page, if you to do along the 25 foot, obviously there's some work within the 25 foot, so you do it along the limit of work, correct?
Correct.
And then where it's beyond the 25 foot, like I'm just looking at the driveway. So basically, it's on the first part of the driveway, it's going to be south of the driveway along the limit of work, right? To kind of what you were saying.
Yes.
Okay,
South
because
of the
that's
driveway along the limit of work.
okay.
North of the driveway is just, do we want to start something? Say, let's see. I don't know, somewhere around like contour 376 or 378 to hit, the 50-foot mark, or do we not want to start anything until the actual limit of work within the 25-foot?
Yeah, I kind of that's a new one for me. I kind of think we should stick to the 25 foot. Travis, do you have any kind of comments on that?
I don't.
Okay. And
So
Jonathan,
could I jump in here for 1
Yep.
second? What I'm picturing here is that on either side of the driveway where you're within the 50 foot or even within the 25 would be to put the signs, medallions or whatever, along essentially where the erosion controls are now. That's the limit of work, and that would more or less follow probably 6 or 7 feet away from the trenches, more or less. And then in the center of the driveway on the southern side, it says 25-foot buffer zone. You could just follow the 25-foot buffer zone in that area. In other words, I want to have a good picture in my mind as to exactly how this would lay out.
right. So that's a good comment because when you come past the swale on the southern side, the last swale to the west, and you have where the limit of work is. So the question is, do we just put the signs along the limit of work because you're telling us that's where the limit of work is, versus putting it through the middle of the woods at the 25-foot no disturb.
Yeah, I have no problem with just following more or less the limit of work, because that
Okay.
really, there's no reason to do any work past that in any
Okay.
other time.
And so that would be an easy thing because it's on the plans There's some areas that you're going to be within the 25 foot because we already know that. Other areas that we're going to be close to the 25 foot, and a couple areas we're going to be a little bit outside of that. Does that make sense, Leah?
So I'm actually gonna ask for clarification to just, can you guys explain to me where you want signage and where you want a barrier?
Okay.
Cause I'm a little lost.
Yeah, so that's kind of, I guess what I'm saying. Yes, no, that's as far as a barrier goes, as long is the site wooded now?
It completely wooded, and it has a lot of boulders more or less along the outer edge of the existing driveway. So there's a natural barrier there. You're not going to go in.
So Leah,
This-
to your point, if should there be, as an example for a barrier, if they just stack any rocks found, any boulders found along the limit of work, and then you can add the signs to that location.
Yeah, there's a lot
So-
of boulders out here.
So the limit of work where? Everywhere?
Not everywhere, because I mean, on this, this is just my opinion. Other people can chime in. If you're doing it again along the driveway, south of the driveway, where the swales are, the swales will be a natural barrier. And then if you put the signs right behind them where the limit of work is, I think that first portion of driveway is fairly straightforward. I think it's once it gets beyond that swale to the west, then you just follow the um, limit of work, and that's where you start doing the boulders in the signage.
Okay, so you're talking about boulders towards the house?
Yes.
Because when we get towards the house, we're no longer in our
The 25 foot.
Yeah, so
Right.
maybe we just forego a barrier and we count signage at the limit of work along the driveway and
Yep.
throw a couple out behind the septic system, and we count that as the permanent demarcation of limit of work suggested by DEP and ART.
Okay. I would go along with that. Yes.
Okay.
Since you have asked for some additional information relative to like seeding, the showing on the detail for the trench, seeding the trench, it would be like a forestry mix for like a trail forestry mix. And let's see, the signs would be shown on the plan. I could actually, what was the distance between the sign? 20 or 25 feet between the signs?
20 feet.
20 feet? Okay.
They're little
I
4 by
could-
4 inch. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the medallions. I have the medallions from previous work. Let's see. I could mark up the plan and show where the signs are going to be when I bring in the plan as a condition showing the detail for the trenches, the planting.
I mean, that's reasonable. We can make it an administrative review based on the condition.
Yeah, that way we'll all kind of have an understanding of where the signs are going.
All right. Anything else, Leah?
Just a reminder to take a separate vote on the waiver request.
Thank you. Let's take care of that now. So do I have a motion to grant a waiver request for work within the no disturb zone?
Sure, I'll move to grant the waiver for work within the no disturb buffer.
Second.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Travis?
Yes.
Jonathan?
yeah,
I am also a yes, so that motion carries and the waiver has been granted. All right. That is cleaned up, Leah.
Okay, do you want me to do a recap on conditions since we
I-
kind of
I
went
th-
sideways?
I think that would be absolutely wonderful so that we could then have a vote on it.
Okay, let's see. Okay, are you guys good with the finding or you want me to reread that too?
I think the findings really clear is
Okay.
outside of the impacts to the buffer zone where there's wetlands outside more than 100 feet. We're not saying they haven't been delineated, so we're just
Okay.
saying that. So I think it's very clear.
All right, so we have the finding, we have the waiver we granted, and then for special conditions, we're now down to 3. 1, prior to commencement of work, the applicant shall submit the waiver request fee. 2, the trench detail shall be amended to include seating. And 3, no disturb signage shall be installed at the limit of work behind the trenches along the driveway, as well as behind the septic system.
That works for me.
Okay.
Any comments on that, on those 3, Bob?
Well, I'm questioning if you could scroll down to the septic system. There's actually 2 limits of work where the 2 lines of erosion control. I wouldn't have a problem with putting the signage along, say, the upper erosion control, which is essentially following close to elevation 370, 376, 374. In other words, because that's really the base of the slope, and that's really where the grading and is going to be done.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
trying to
yeah, that's a good clarification. I have no problem with that location.
Yeah.
I think that's what we
Oh.
were talking about.
Okay. Like I say, I'll add that to the revised plan, and I'll show it like with a yellow marker or something.
Okay. And Jan, nothing from any of the public have asked for anything, right?
Nothing from the public.
Okay. So we've gone through that. We have the 3 conditions. Thank you, Leah. We have the finding. Do I have a motion to grant the order of conditions as discussed?
I'll move to close the hearing and issue order of conditions as discussed, along with the finding regarding the resources not delineated and the conditions. Yeah,
All right.
I think that's it.
Great. Yep. Do I have a second?
Second,
A roll call vote. Jonathan.
yes.
Travis.
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries, and the order of conditions will be issued with the conditions. All right. We're all set.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, Leah. Next one. Let's keep on going. Millbury Street. So, pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon notice of intent application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of sidewalks and road improvements on Millbury Street between Sean McHale Way and Crosby Road. And who's here to speak to that?
Hi, I'm Keith Lincoln with Chapel Engineering.
And I'm John Salisbury with Chapel Engineering.
All right, Leah, your report.
All right, so we did get DEP comments in today at like 3:30. They were cut off at the end, and we're all awaiting DEP like resending a PDF so we get the complete version. But we don't have that in hand. The other thing I wanted to just touch on is just for the sake of exemptions for Mass DOT, I just want to make sure we are either citing the proper provisions that give exemptions from our bylaw or issuing a bylaw permit. I just want to make sure we get the paperwork correct. So I know Sandy, you were speaking a bit to that earlier, if we want to open that conversation now.
Okay, so as it applies here, so so I'll give the applicant an opportunity to indicate why MassDOT is exempt from our local bylaws.
Kylie, I'm gotta defer to you on that one.
I am going to pull up the letter that you should have received, Grafton, stating our exemption.
So yeah, so Jan, can you pull that up?
That comes directly from conversations with our legal team that provides us the exemption.
And that's a legal opinion.
Correct.
Okay. And is there a case law on this?
We have set precedent numerous times using this.
That wasn't the question.
That,
there-
not to my knowledge,
Okay. So
I don't know of any case. No.
Okay. All right. So can you just go through this letter?
Are you asking me to?
Yes, please. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So according to our legal team, agencies and authorities of the Commonwealth are exempt from local authority, specifically citing any Mass General Law, Chapter 6C, subsection 27. And the summary also comes from, I believe it should be included in here. Looking for it specifically. The imposition of local bylaws and fees falls under these general principles and is supported by state statutes, opinions of the Attorney General, and case law.
Okay. Although it's probably not directly related to MassDOT projects. Obviously, I'm familiar with this letter, but let me ask a separate question, which is the last paragraph where is exempt from local bylaws. Then it goes, every attempt will be made to keep you, the commission, apprised of status as it enters. Yeah, so my question is to you is specifically on the local bylaw, what specific items that you're looking at in our bylaw that you're looking to get an exemption from, trying to understand why you can't follow the bylaw if if it's easily attainable.
There are some instances, and again, I don't know blanket statement if this applies specifically to this project off the top of my head, but there are instances where installing the 25-foot no disturb buffer zone is not an option based on the work we need to do, as well as other things related to erosion and storm control barriers, just because we are meeting the state standard, which typically falls in line with local bylaws. And that is kind of our governing authority, is the state bylaws.
Okay, so just as an FYI, most local bylaws enhance the requirements of the state bylaw, state regulations. That's why we have local bylaws. So Leah, if you could just, I know that you've kind of looked at it. So generally, what are the items that we're talking about as far as the local bylaw that we would be looking to have this exemption from?
So the main thing we would then just be looking at is our no disturb zone, and I think we would then need to grant a waiver for them to work within it. I don't think we would be asking for signage or barrier or that sort of thing, because it's all roadside.
Yep.
But it's, like I said, it's just a matter of making sure we're issuing the right paperwork with the right votes taken on it.
Okay. No, that's what I'm trying to get to is, to look at this and to see, to ask the question about, what our local bylaw says, how it impacts this particular project, and then look at potentially the findings of why we were not going to require those, and then not require the local bylaw permit. So let me first go
Hey.
quickly around with commissioners to ask that question. So Travis.
I'm just curious, it says here, maintain the state highway system. Millbury Street's not part of the highway system, is it?
It's public and it's part of the network. You could get into some, it's like if you look at,
So
the federal highway system is very specific. It's done for civil defense. It's done for the protection of the country. That's where
Yeah,
they get a
so-
lot of their stuff. Yeah.
that citation says state highway system, metropolitan highway system, and the turnpike.
Right.
Just seems pretty specific.
Which is, yeah, that's, now, the state highway, but it's a good question. The state highways sometimes are are relatively local streets that are for different reasons in history and stuff are state highways, but they may not look like the Mass Pike. But, this particular street, the Millbury Street is a town road. And so Kylie, can you confirm that? That's a town road.
I believe so. Keith would
Yeah.
be the best answer.
Yeah, that's correct. It is a town
It's a
road.
town road and where they're using MassDOT funding to do this work. Which is where the money is kind of where this is coming from. So, Jonathan, any comments on these?
I was gonna ask a similar question. Travis beat me to it.
Okay, so, and again, it has to do with who's procuring this as opposed to the right of way, and then
Yeah.
gets a little bit more complicated of where the money comes from for supporting a lot of public roads, whether it's a quote unquote state highway as defined in certain regulations as indicated in certain places with the state, or with the local roads. A lot of the money to maintain and do improvements comes from the state, and they tend to exert their exemption when they're dealing with a project that they're basically paying for. So again, I think these are all really good questions. I wanted to kind of get to the bigger question to help Leah out here, is the fact that what we're talking about on this specific project is our no disturb area of 25 foot, and then that what our typical requirements may be. And I think as Leah indicated, based because it's a roadway and based on the sidewalk and other things, we typically wouldn't be requiring a barrier for this. So it's like it becomes I want to make sure we're clear on what that is under the local bylaw that we're talking about. The more difficult part of it is the question that Leah has rightfully asked, which is, as far as do we issue a local bylaw permit? Because we as commissioners can obviously waive that requirement for anything in the no disturb zone. And then, but I'm sure you're going to get pushback from MassDOT on that, because we would be beginning a precedent which they do not want to do. So let's kind of go through options. We can do a finding, based on this submittal, is unique to this submittal, that says, based on the characteristics of this particular project, that as a finding that we would allow the exemption. I don't know, Leah, kind of help me here. I'm trying.
So maybe if I just segue a bit into findings I had already assembled, and then maybe that can tee us up for how to word this one.
Okay, that sounds good.
So I did already have that we agree with two others. Mass DOT is exempt from. One is a butter notification per 310 CMR 10.054A. Two is they're exempt from our stormwater bylaw per section 3K of our stormwater bylaw, which calls out routine maintenance and upgrading of existing public ways. So maybe we add a third. Mass DOT is exempt from the wetlands bylaw per the letter from their legal team with whatever the date is on this letter.
Okay.
Were you wanting to add more to it about the
No,
design itself?
No, I think let's keep it clean. So I would go back to the other commissioners here, Travis, and whether what your take on this is, or if you have any questions.
No, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, Jonathan.
I don't have a take and I don't have any question.
Okay, so I think that's probably a good approach, but I think the other that's kind of overall as far as which direction we're going in, as far as findings go. But as far as closing the hearings, the one thing that we don't have is responses to DEP comments. So has the applicant had an opportunity to look at these, and did they also get a copy of the DEP comments?
We did not get a full copy. We
Okay.
did not receive that PDF. We only received the email that you had received at 3:30 as well.
Okay.
And with that being said, would like to continue to the next hearing
Okay.
to
I
get a
think that
response.
yeah, that would be great because I think we need to clean that up. So, all right. At this time I'll open it up to the public. If there's anyone online that has any comments or questions, please raise your hand and we'll call on you and get those any questions answered and receive any of your comments. So, okay. With that, one last round. Any other questions before we do a motion to continue it? To continue, Travis, anything else?
Nope, nothing else.
All right, Jonathan, anything else?
No.
I also do not have anything else. So, do I have a motion, Leah? Anything else before we do the continuance?
No.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion to continue the hearing back to the applicant next meeting, or do you have any specific?
Next meeting, December 12th. Is that correct?
Okay, I
I'll
believe that
move.
is. Yep, go ahead.
I'll move to continue the hearing to December 12th.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. So we'll see you in a couple weeks, and then if hopefully we'll get the full DEP comments, so both we can review them and you can prepare a response to them. And I think that's it for you.
Thank you so
see
much.
you in a couple weeks. Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Leah. That's it for continuations.
Yeah, just
Okay.
few action items.
Okay. You got it. Okay. Any particular order, or there's only a couple of them, anyways.
Nope, just write down the list is fine.
Sounds good. So we did get both October 3rd and the 24th meeting minutes, correct?
Yep.
At least I looked at 2 meeting minutes. I probably never looked at the date, but I looked at 2 meeting minutes. So do we have a motion to approve these, or does anyone have any comments or questions? So real quick, Travis, any comments?
Yeah. I think one of them I wasn't there for. Can I still approve them?
So my understanding is that approving of meeting minutes is an administrative process, and you therefore do not need to be present. You can still read it, and if you have comments or questions on it, you can still
Okay.
say. All right, that's
Okay,
my
cool.
understanding.
No
Anything,
questions or
Jonathan?
comments.
Yep. Jonathan?
No questions or comments.
Yep. Okay. So now, having said that, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the October 3rd and October 24th meeting minutes.
Second,
Motion is second. Roll call vote. Travis?
Yes.
Jonathan?
yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. Request for certificate of compliance. Leah?
Yeah, we have two. We have 40 Main Street first. That's a multifamily complex near Colette Motors. They met all their conditions. They are the ones that had the grass paver system that's in place. They also put in place the signage we asked for about maintaining that system, especially in the winter. We have
Okay.
an as-built plan, the site's stable, their erosion controls up, they're good to go. I recommend issuing the COC.
All right, great. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to issue the certificate of compliance for 40 Main Street.
Second,
Motion is second. Roll call vote. Travis?
Yes.
Jonathan?
yes.
And I am also a yes. The motion carries. All right, discussion item.
It's
no.
actually another
I'm
action
sorry.
item, just in the 48-hour window. So it's another COC request, this time for a stormwater permit for 155 George Hill Road, which is a very large solar array. They started the COC request process quite a few months ago. I visited the site with Jeff toward the end of the summer. We have as-built plans on file. We flagged a handful of things as a result of that visit, and they have been working on buttoning them all up over the past couple months. They're now ready to go. I recommend issuing the COC as well as releasing the bond for this one.
All right, sounds good. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to issue the certificate of compliance for 155 George Hill Road and release the bond.
Thank you. Second.
Second,
Roll call vote. Travis?
Yes.
Jonathan?
yes.
I am also a yes. All right, Leah, is that it?
That's it.
Rock and roll. One last motion.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second,
All right, roll call. Travis?
Yes.
Jonathan?
yes.
I am also a yes.